Hello, my name is Dr. Erik Goodwyn. I'm an assistant professor of psychiatry, director of psychotherapy training at University of Louisville. My paper is Archetypes and the Impoverished Genome Argument, Updates from Evolutionary Genetics. Background for this paper: when I was a resident in training for psychiatry, I became very interested in Jung, and in particular his concept of the collective unconscious and the archetypes. At that time, my background was in genetic research. In fact, for my master's, I did research on a prostate cell cancer line. So when I encountered Jung, I became very interested to know what other scholars in the field were saying about the collective unconscious and the archetypes. And now that we know so much more about genetics, how do they integrate? How do these two fields integrate? As it turns out, as many of you know, in the early 2000s, a very influential author named Jean Knox put forward her theory, which I'm calling the impoverished genome idea, and that is that the genome at that time was felt to have about 30,000 genes in it, and the feeling was at that time that that was really not enough genes to encode enough symbolic information to really make sense of the collective unconscious as an inherited structure the way Jung imagined. So because of that limitation, they felt that the idea of the collective unconscious and the personal unconscious should really be collapsed down to early experiences. Now, not everyone agreed with that assessment, of course. Others, such as Anthony Stevens and John Whewell, for example, said no. There's a number of reasons why we should really consider the collective unconscious as a valid structure and an inherited structure, the way Jung initially envisioned it, and they gave various reasons for why they thought that was. But they did not engage the impoverished genome idea. So, being that I had experience in genetics research, and because of my biomedical background, I really wanted to engage this question. So over the years I've done that. And this paper that I'm presenting now is the latest in my integrative efforts along those lines. So what I'm doing with this paper is we're going to be updating this idea of the impoverished genome with a more precise and expanded view of what we know now about evolutionary neurogenetics. In particular, we're going to take a look at three things. So the first one is, what exactly is the informational capacity of the genome? Can we say with greater clarity now? Two is, what influence, if any, does the genome have on development beyond birth? And three, we're going to look at the conceptual and somewhat technical challenge involved in saying something or another is encoded by the genome. So when we do say that, there are some conceptual issues that we needed to look at precisely so that we can answer it accurately. And what we're going to find at the end of the paper, what you'll see that I conclude, is that if we look at a more updated and expanded database for what we know about genetics now, we can say that the informational capacity of the genome is actually quite high. Furthermore, the influence of the genome is extensive and goes well past birth, all the way up to death. And third, that when we view it in the precise terminology that is required when we're looking at whether or not something is encoded, even when we look at that very rigorously, we can say with confidence that the formal, if not the precise aspects of many archetypal images, i.e. the archetype as such, is in fact encoded by the genome. As you work through the paper, I'll be addressing all those questions, and I hope you find it very interesting and thought-provoking. And I wanted to thank the staff at the journal. They've been very helpful and supportive. And I thank you very much also for your time.